Hi everyone, this is Laura from Green & Company, and today I'm here with November's Creative Maker Box project. This is the first one. There'll be a second video to do the ornament. So let's get started. So I'm going to begin by doing the staining, and I'm going to work on painting the spindles for the sign. Then you'll need to let it sit for a while, and then we can come back and do the vinyl stencil. So mine looks a little different than yours just because I'm using a dud, and so my pieces have a couple extra pieces here that are just laying on top, but yours will all sit inside here. And so what I'm going to do, because I'm staining the back, I'm going to pull this apart and I'm going to stain my frame at the same time, as well as those pieces on my tree that need the stain as well. So I'm going to pull my tape off because I have tape on the back already, and I'm just going to pop out those ones that need stain. Now, I've written on mine here so I won't get them confused. There. Pull that one off. Stain this one and my bottom one. Let me just double check. Stain, 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 and stain. Okay, so I have 4 to stain. I'll put these off to the side for now. Now, bunch of little things here first. So I've tried to make this as easy as possible for lining up, because once you start getting with these circles, you'll be like, how do I line this up? So this is center. I've made a score mark there, which will, I gotta go back to my template. Okay, so when you're doing this, okay, let me move all my pieces here. 1, 2, 3, and I just lost one piece. That's what I get already. Oh, that's because it's stuck underneath. Okay, so when this is put together, now you've got to look really carefully, or at least I had it. Oh, shoot. I'm going to struggle with you right away. So, okay, so your biggest thing is that you're looking for the grain to go side to side. Now I'm going to line this back up again, and I thought I made a mark on that top part, but okay, so it fits in there just like that. Okay, so what you might want to do to make it easier, so on your back piece you'll see a little score mark right there. That is your top, which will coincide with this. Now, before you paint this over top of this, slide this over, take and put a piece of tape in the back and mark a line like this, so you know where that is, because this will help with your placement when you put the hanging tab on there. Okay, so that way when you, once you start to cover this up, especially with the frame, you're not going to find it. Okay, so with this one, because you don't want to lose that, and you didn't want to put a score mark on the front because you would see it, is now take this, put a piece of tape in the back, and mark a line here so you remember where your top piece is. Okay, you can make your piece of tape smaller than that, but for now I'm just putting a piece of tape. That way when we go to line things up, it will be easier. Okay, so let's set this off to the side here. You need to make room for staining. So got that piece, this piece, and your little tiny pieces. Now if you wish to change the order or whatever and paint your spindles different colors, that's fine, but we are going to stain those ones. Okay, so you'll have your container stain. I'm just using some leftover from a workshop we had last night. So I'm just gonna dip in there. So that is way more than I am going to need, but I'm going to stain the front and I'm gonna stain the back. Even though this little piece of tape is there, I will just, you know what, I'll probably just leave this for now. So I'm just gonna stain the front. I could go back and mark it, but for now I'm just going to stain. So dip your brush and then turn it on its side and then wipe in the direction of the grain. You want your brush to stay slightly damp, or the surface will stay slightly damp, so that way when you go to wipe it, it will blend a lot nicer. You don't want to go too much near the edge because you don't want them puddling in those grooves. Okay, now you can take your paper towel and wipe to blend. Now I guess I can take that off. I will take that tape off because we can just go back and mark that again. So I'm going to take it off. There we go. Because it will bug me if it's not. So. We're only painting the one side, but it looks better when it's stained if it's finished on the back side. I mean, if you have, for those of you who have not done any dry brushing before, you can always use the back as your practice if you've got enough paint to play with, but we're just providing you paint to do the front, so. Okay. So just remember though, when you go to do this, which side is your front, because that's the one that's got that marking. So when you're done, before you start to paint, remember to mark off that little spot on the back if you stained the back, so that way it'll make it easier to line up. So I'm just going to set this one off to the side and come in and do this one. So this one, remember, we're not doing the back because it's got the adhesive, so we're just going to run a coat of stain, and you don't want to get too much on your brush because you don't want it puddling in those little corners there. So really you don't need a whole lot. I'm pretty much just using up what's left in my brush, but if you do dip it, just dip ever so slightly. Okay, and then just come back and wipe it. Okay, so that piece is done as well, so set that off to the side, and then you've got your little pieces here. Hold on guys, I gotta go check on a bunny who's chewing my baseboard, so I will be back in 2 seconds. Okay, so that part is done, and then just wipe those off and set off those off to the side. Okay, so get rid of that. You won't need your stain brush anymore or your stain. Because this project's gonna take 2 days, you can do these steps, any of the parts, whenever, but the staining of the back and the dry brushing of the front of this needs to be done a day before you put the vinyl on. So just a heads up there. So we'll be doing everything else today except for doing the vinyl stencil. Okay, so next I'm going to come back, and while that's drying, we're going to work on these pieces. So I'm going to just do the blue, the light green, and the dark green. Once I do the white on the sign, I will do the white on these. So I'm just going to make piles here. Okay, so I'm going to pop out the blue ones first, which is our Inglenook. It's kind of a blue-green, so it's not truly a blue. Inglenook there. Okay, that one's the one I can't get out. And this one. So I'm just going to line them up with my color tubes here. White is there, and white is there. This is bayberry. This is olive. So I'm leaving my tape on the back because I'm going to put them back in here after. I just want to make sure I get them out and put them with their colors, because it'll be easier than having them bounce around the table when I go to paint. Okay, so whites, I've got 3. 1, big one there, 3. Inglenook, I've got 1, 2, 3. Olive, I've got 1 and 2, and bayberry, I've got 1 and 2. Okay, so that is all the pieces. So I'm going to start with my blue ones. So this one I'm just going to have to tape to my board because I can't get it out. So I'm just going to do this and do it here. And this one I'll put back in here and here. So there you go. So you guys can do the same thing, or if you want, you can just tape them to your table and line them up that way. So whatever you find to be the easiest, but I'm going to do this way. Okay, so grab your paint. Hold on, guys. Dealing with the... Okay. So yeah, if you have a paper plate or something, which is what I like to use, like these foam trays, you're just going to dump a little bit of that paint because you'll have it in that paint little paint pod. You can either pour a little bit on there or just kind of put your foam wedge over top, and then we're going to continue and do these. So let me just put the bunny down. There we go. Oops, my tape is coming off. Okay, I have to slide this over. I'm right on that line. There we go. So obviously this is not going to take very much. And grab your paper towel, dip your foam wedge, and then blot all that extra off, because you're not wanting to get any on the sides, you're just wanting to hit that top surface. This one, just do like this, and you do it lightly too, so that way you can still see those lines from the spindles. So you're going to do each of these. I'm going to do a coat of each, and then I'm just going to keep repeating until I am happy with the coverage. So you guys can, if you want, you can do one color at a time and then just keep popping them out of the tray. For the video, I'm just going to move this along a little faster. So olive. See, olive I can do every other one, so I'm going to stick it in here, and then bayberry I'm going to set over here, so I can do them all at once. All right, so by now my blue is dry, so I'm just going to come in here and sand that one. Okay, and then I'm just gonna keep doing this on repeat on these 3 colors. So I'll speed up the video so you don't have to sit here and watch me in real time. And I will come back when I've done all 3 sets in full color. Okay, so that's it for me. I'm only doing 2 coats because I'm gonna sand them and distress them quite a bit, so I'm not going to do any more on those ones. So I'm just going to set them off to the side to just dry for a moment. If you do have them in here, just, you know, obviously mine aren't sitting in the template very well, so I know that they're not sticking in there, but if you've got yours taped on all sides and so forth, just give them a little wiggle, making sure that they're coming out. but I will just set those off to the side. The white ones we will get to here in a moment, but this, so yeah, this is still a little bit damp just in the time that we have been doing this, so it probably only needs like, I don't know, 10 minutes, but I'll come back here in a little bit when I have a moment, and then I'm going to show you how to do the dry brushing, and then we will leave that till the next day, and I'll come back and do the vinyl stencil. So I'm just gonna leave this for now, and I will come back here shortly, guys. All right, see you soon. Okay guys, I'm back. So we're going to get this prepped for the white paint. So this is my back, this is my front. So I'm gonna give this a sand. I'm just gently going across. Some of this wood that we use now is not so grainy, so you might not feel it to be quite as rough. And I'm just gonna gently take it to the back and wipe that off. Okay, so I'm gonna mark this before I forget. So let me look for my little, whoops, wrong side. Okay, there's my mark, which means that's the front. So flip it over, find that little score mark and line up your line if you've done one. If not, then do your mark. Okay, so that's there. We'll set that off for a second, and then we're just going to quickly sand this. So just carefully run it over. You don't have to be too rough on that. There we go. Okay, so we'll set that off to the side. I didn't sand these pieces yet, but you can take them out and you can give them a sand so they're smooth, and if you want them to be distressed quite a bit, then go ahead and you know, take your sandpaper and really go at it. But I'm going to come back and do those later. It's same sanding as we just did. So okay, so I'm going to grab this and I'm going to run and grab a brush that I forgot, so I'll be right back. Okay, so you're gonna need your 2-inch brush for this part, and if you've got some paper towel, because you're gonna wanna wipe off most of that paint. So I'm just gonna add some to my tray. You can dump some on a tray or just dip into your container, but just don't dip too deep because you're gonna take it all off anyway. So this way I can just load it evenly on my brush, and then I'm gonna take it and wipe most of it off. So definitely watch your sides. Make sure you don't have any big gobs of paint. And then you're just gonna start by going back and forth. Now, when you're dry brushing, you don't wanna just start on the board and go back and forth. You wanna have some movement with your brush before you even approach. And as I'm running out of paint, I will tend to push a little harder on my surface so that it blends out in different heaviness. And then you're just going to keep building up until you like the coverage. Now we will come in and do the sides because for this particular one it looks better that way. But don't worry if you get some darker patches off the beginning. You can come in and blend those. And as you can see, as my brush runs out, I'll go into different areas and really pull on it. I tend to sometimes just go and turn it sideways and pull it this way. That way I can work in more smaller areas. See, so I've taken my brush from this direction, and then like I said, I turned it sideways, and that way I can pull. And if you turn your board and come at it a different way, then your strokes can just kind of, you know, you can, sometimes you pull heavier one way than the other. All right, so I don't have any paint left, but I really haven't gone through a whole lot on my board there, so. Okay, so I'm gonna quickly do one more coat over top. So I did my first initial one, and it's already dry, like, because your brush is pretty much dry as you're doing this. And I apologize for the video shaking because my table will just move. Now remember, your edges don't have to be perfect because you'll have your border from your frame on there, which will cover those. But so as I'm going to do this, my brush is fairly dry, and you're going to get a little dirty here, but you're going to touch, make sure your board is, you know, fairly dry, because you're going to have to hold it and support it. So you're going to go one way, so you grab one edge of the circle, even take your brush and go in there like that. I'm just going to try and grab what I have off my paper towel. See, it doesn't take much, especially when it wants to grab those edges. And you're going to be fairly hard on your brush when you do this. So if you've got a couple of, you know, 2-inch brushes, or you've got a brush that's a little bit older, and that's where that's good for it. Okay, so take most of that and then come back in here. So yes, I'm missing those gaps, but I'm just going to go around first one way. Okay, so I've gone completely around. Now I'm going to flip it over so I can come back and get that other side of the circle. Not circle, the curve there part. Okay, I think I've gone around, and now I'm just going to come in here and get inside those grooves. And this is where you're going to have to really force it. So if you don't have any paint on your brush much, you shouldn't be getting a whole lot of buildup around here. Not that that matters, because once we do that with it, you'll just cover it up. But you don't want to have big gobs of paint so that your frame doesn't sit on there very well. Okay, let's come back in here. So you can see it's starting to cover it up. And it doesn't have to be perfectly covered up, because remember, your front isn't perfectly covered up either. It's still, you can still see some of that stain popping through. So it's fine to have some of the dark char still coming through, but so you can see now how it's wanting to come in there and make a mess on that edge, but that is okay because we will cover that up. I mean, technically you could be coming at it this way, so you're pulling it on the back side, any extra splatter, but I've already come this way, so I'm just going to finish it this way. Okay, so, I mean, you can always come back in like that and just feather anything out, but this doesn't have to be finished. Like, I'm going to do the frame and see how I am for matching up, and then I'm going to come back and see if I need to add anything. All right, so I'm just going to put that off to the side, and we're going to do the same thing. Now I'm going to turn my brush on its side this way instead of going this way, because I really just want that short edge going across, not like this. So, and really support it, because the frame part is a bit flimsier than the other part. So I'm pretty much keeping, so the grain of my wood is going side to side, because you want those brush strokes to go the same direction as the back part of the frame. So I'm just kind of making sure my frame is that way. So you're not going like this all the way around, you're pulling in the same direction as that. So if you do flip it around, just make sure you keep those wood lines in that direction as well. Okay, so for now, let's see. Okay, so you can take this and go like that and find your little line and match it and say, do I need some more? For me, I feel like I still need some more on the frame, so I'm going to continue working on that. It's still a little too much brown showing through. Okay, guys, let's try this again, because I think I've got a few minutes left. I had to reset my phone. So, okay, let's come back in here and finish this up. All right, so let's come in here. Now, if my phone happens to die again before I get this done, you're going to do the same thing on the edge as you did with this. So I'm just going to take this back over here. Okay, so I'm a little bit happier with this. So let's come back in here. So yeah, just continue building it up until you like your coverage. Same thing here. So now you're just going to have to be a little bit more delicate when you do this, because it's a little flimsier. But now you don't want to have too much on your brush, because you are going to see this top when it is done. So when you're doing this part, make sure the back is facing towards you, and when you're pulling, that way any buildup will build up on the back part and not on the front. So just keep going around like that. Okay, just gotta watch my video time, guys. Okay, so as I finish this, because I didn't get to that yet, you're also gonna make sure to do these pieces in the white as well. Okay, so just like we did before with the greens and the bluey color, you're gonna come in there and do those as well. Okay, so, whoops, see, I lost my little thing. So you should still be able to see it. If it falls off on you, let me lean it the right way. Oh yeah, no, I gotta put it back on my thing. So you can always put a black permanent marking on the back, but I'll just fit mine around my template and mark it again. But if your tape falls off, just make sure line it up with your piece over there. But I'll go through all that when we're putting it together. So yeah, so if I pull it this way, my dirtiness will come this way instead of so much in the front. If you have to, you can always come in here and blend a coat over top of that if you feel it looks a little off there. But remember, you got to do inside and outside of this frame. So you got to come back in there and do that side too. So you'll have 3 sides to do. Part has to sit it's always better with your vinyl stencil if you can let it sit a good day, or at least overnight. So this is the next part I won't do until tomorrow. Okay, so my phone's gonna die in a second. So you're just gonna continue doing that, and I will come back tomorrow and we will continue on with the rest of the sign. All right. Thanks guys for watching, and we will see you tomorrow. Hi guys, I'm back now on day 2 of the round sign project. So this for today, you're going to need your vinyl stencil, and you're going to need your sign base that you've previously stained and painted or finished in the finish that you wish to do. I haven't sanded it yet, but I'm just going to take my sandpaper and do a light sand over top. And then I'm just going to wipe that dust off. This is dry, so it won't leave any marks. There we go. So, okay, a couple things. Now, remember, in order to get this lined up properly, we need to look for specific marks. So, the top of your sign back will have that little tiny score mark in your finish. Now, if you accidentally painted too heavy and filled that in, which you really shouldn't have, you should have a marking on the back already too, because that will help with putting on the hanging hardware. Okay, so make sure that is up at the top. For this project, we're going to do a vinyl stencil. So I haven't cut your guys's yet when I'm doing this video. So you're either going to have a pen mark on the front, or I'm going to do a little score mark in the vinyl. Probably more likely I'll probably do a pen mark, but either way, that's going to be your guide for lining it up here, so that way everything else lines up. Okay, so what you're going to do right now, line it up so that is at the top, flip it over, and gently peel this off. So those of you who have never done vinyl stencils before, you're not going to just peel this off really fast. You want to go slow. There's little bits and pieces in between the letters that you need to make sure stay on that side and not on here. So just try not to lift the back, kind of let it roll across. If for some reason some of your little pieces get caught, then you want to roll this back and give it a rub, because if you pull too fast and it gets caught on something that's not an inner letter, you can tear your vinyl. So my finger's on it, it's fine down here. You just want to be careful on the design that's cut. So just gently pull it off. There we go. Okay, so we don't need that piece any longer. So now you can do this one of two ways, depending on what is easier for you. You can either try and just line it up like this on the top, because you can see where your marks are, or I'm not going to press that hard. I don't want it to get stuck. See, already going to get stuck. So I'm going to just flip this over. I'm going to take my marker or a pen, and I'm going to make a mark off my page so I can see it when I flip it over, and do it that way. I like to do it upside down so I can really sit there and try and match that. So with the mark either here, which you should see here, you'll be able to line this up. And I got to get my head right in here. So just gently. So what I try and do instead of going straight down is that just line up your edge and kind of just gently see that it is lined up. If it's not, you can easily lift it off. If you start getting in contact with the design part, you have a chance of ruining that if you try and lift it up. So if you just got it attached to the edge, then you should be fine. Okay, so I'm thinking that is pretty good. going to drop it. I'm going to give it like this, and then I'm going to turn it around, and then I'm going to give it a rub. I just want it to stay in place, and then you're going to take the transfer tape, and same thing with the back. You don't want to pull on it because you can remove some of those inner bits or get caught. So I find it easier just to roll it across my design. Just like that. Now, if it's not perfectly lined up this way, you're still centered in your circle, so it's not going to be noticeable in any way. Okay, so same thing. If this was to happen to get caught, roll it back, give it a rub, and then continue pulling off. And before you scrunch it, just make sure that you haven't, I mean, I know I haven't, so taken any of your black pieces, because once you scrunch this stuff up, you'll never get it open to get the pieces back out. So just make sure there's no bubbles. Okay, so now we've got that part. Now we've changed our stenciling technique a little bit because sometimes we don't need the sealant medium. Now we are going to use it for this particular project, because if we do get any bleeding, because we've got two finishes on the back, like the stain and the paint, if you bleed some color, it might run into the stain. So we're going to still seal it with the clear stuff, but normally if we have a painted surface, we're actually painting it the same color as the base to seal it and then paint over. If we have a stained surface, then we're usually sealing still with our glue medium, and then that way you won't see a bleed. But because you've got a mix of the two, we're going to just still do the clear medium, and then we'll be okay. All right, so you're going to grab, my foam brush is a little weird at the end, so we're just going to take our foam brush now, and in your box you should have a container that says decoupage medium. That's what you're going to use. So you're going to dip into your container, and you're going to squish it into all of your letters. Now you don't want to just do random and smooth it over. You want to take your time and squish right over all of those letters and then smooth it over. And you don't have to stay really precise. You don't have to be like, oh, I gotta just stay by just those letters. Squish it right in there. Go wider than the design, because that way you're getting even pressure around all those edges. And it's really the edges of the design that we're worried about, because we don't want the paint to bleed under there. So just go around, you know, spend 5-10 seconds on each word, making sure you're really getting it in there, and then just smooth it over. You don't want any texture left from that medium, so it should be nice and clear once it dries and not all ridgy. So you're just going to go around and do that. So I'll speed this up as you watch me do it. Really pay attention to the little teeny tiny things like the dot and stuff, because sometimes it's harder to squish in there because the area is smaller. So just spend a second or two more on that, and then just smooth it over. Okay, I'll be back in a few seconds. That's done. So as you're watching me, you're probably seeing me flip my brush around. Sometimes you'll find, depending on the brush and stuff, is that one way your foam can squish better one way than the other. So just keep playing with it till you get a really good feel for the brush squishing that stuff into the stencil. But so now I'm just going to let it dry. So depending on your environment, it might take a few minutes, it might take 10, whatever. You just don't want it to feel sticky. So if it's a little cooler, it just might take a little longer to dry. But as long as you see there's not a whole lot of buildup, it's just more the vinyl is shiny. But you don't want a whole lot of extra goopiness. It should be just a nice thin shiny layer when you're done. And then it'll dry really fast, and then we'll continue on painting and assembling your sign. So I will be back when this is ready to go. All right, see you guys. Okay guys, so I'm back. I don't know, I've been running around here at the house, so probably about 15 minutes. So you're gonna grab your bayberry color, which is the darker green. I'm just gonna squirt a little bit on my tray. And you can either use your 1/2 inch brush or your 1 inch brush. So just be careful on the edges here where, well, I guess it really doesn't matter, other than if you go over the edges, that we're gonna cover that up anyways, but we're not using a whole lot of paint. So for those who've never done a vinyl stencil before, yes, we've sealed it, and we're assuming you have sealed it perfectly, but if you happen to miss a spot and you're using too much paint, you can push that paint underneath the stencil. So less is definitely best. The paint covers very well, so you don't have to overload your brush just thinking you're going to get a better coverage. So it's best to do thin light coats, and we're going to do 2, maybe 3, but 2 is usually good on a color like this. So put a little on your brush and then just gently go over. Now I'm kind of going in the direction of the grain, just because I can, you know, if you look at your brush strokes sometimes, if you see any, I want them to go in that direction. So that's what I'm doing. So you can see, I'm going to bring this closer, you can see that there is like no extra paint. It's just a thin layer. You can still see some of that white underneath. That's what you want. So I'm really just putting hardly anything on my brush, and I'm gently just brushing over top. See, my brush just very lightly wet with paint. Not forcing it, just gently painting over top. So you're going to do that 2-3 times. You just don't want to see any white left underneath. Like I said, the second coat should really solid it up. Depending on some colors are how they're made, might take an extra coat, but bayberry is a pretty good color. So I'm going to do this coat, it's done, and I'm going to let it dry, which shouldn't take very long, especially that your coats of paint are really thin. And then I'm going to come back, and you can watch me, but I'll speed up the video, and I'm going to do it 2-3 times depending, and then I'll come back when it's time to remove the stencil. Okay? Good luck guys, and I'll see you soon. Okay guys, I'm back. Mine is dry, and we're gonna get through the last little bit here to get your sign done. So make sure that you've got a nice clean spot here, because we'll be flipping things over here shortly. So what you're gonna do now with your vinyl is we're gonna peel it off. So we're gonna want to have some tools, because there is some little bits in between here that in the letters that you're going to need to be able to pick it out. So I've got a really small picking tool. You could use, we used to do in our workshops, an X-Acto knife with a nice sharp tip. You could use a needle, something tiny to be able to prick that vinyl and pull it up. So that's what we're going to use as we start to take this off. So now I had mentioned before you put this on that we had let this sit overnight. So when you go to peel this off, had you left it overnight, it should come off a lot easier, because your painted surface should be nice and dry, and they're not trying to stick together, like dry together. So And let's get going. So and it doesn't matter now, we're gonna let it rip because that's the only way it comes off. So I don't try and pull really hard and pull it off, just because I want to still be careful with my surface, just in case there's a sliver that the vinyl catches and, you know, it kind of tears that up. So I'll get going here. And because of the shape of this, you're going to find it's going to rip a lot around the edge. So I like to go slow because I like to be able to wiggle it out of the letters if I can. So that way I don't have to come back and pick them out, but I will have to come back and pick out the insides. But as you go around some of the letters, you will have some stuff around it. So the knife is good, or a little thing to help get in there. And you're just going to go all the way around and pick it up. So I'm just going to do this, and then you can continue to watch. I'll do it on fast, so that way you don't have to sit here for the next 5 minutes or so watching me remove vinyl. Okay, so I will talk to you shortly. Now that is off. So when it comes to picking these pieces in the inside, you don't want to go digging because you don't want to damage the wood underneath. So, and I'm not sure how well you can see this. Okay, so you have the edge of your painted word, and then you have your edge of your vinyl. So don't come right in at the edge of the vinyl where the word, the stencil, and your painted part meet, because if you start to dig there and grab for that edge, then you'll scrape your paint that you just did. So what you're going to want to do, see if I can get this in really close, is take your tool, whether it's a pin or this or the knife, and come in at almost like a 90-degree angle, like sideways, and kind of gently grab that surface. I mean, you might poke a hole in it, and that's fine, but you really are not digging into the wood surface, and then grab it up. Okay, let's see what else I can do while I'm holding it. Especially with your little A's like this, kind of just, you see how I'm just kind of pushing on it? You just want to grab that, grab the layers. So you just, and so if you've done this too soon, like your vinyl stencil over top of your painted surface, then you'll find that this is really hard to do because it's really sticky. Where if you let your surface dry a longer time, then these come off with really great ease. So I'm just pushing. I really hope you guys can see this, but so just get in here. And if you have to, use your finger. Okay, so there's my edge of my stencil that I need to get out. I'm coming in about, I don't know, 1/8 of an inch. And okay, let me see if I can do it with the knife so you guys can see. Okay, so there's my inside. I'm coming in a little bit. It's harder when I have to hold it, guys. And just at a little bit of an angle, just gonna grab so used to doing with my little picker that I can't do it with this anymore. I tend to use my other hand when I do it because I can use my knife and my thumb to pull on it. Okay, let's see if I can do it farther away with the knife so you can see. So I put my knife down and I kind of protect the knife edge with my finger, and then I can kind of pull on it So I'm coming in at an angle. I can feel it kind of pushing, and then I pull them up together. So there's me squishing. I can see it moving, and then I use my finger to lift it up. So I can kind of see the vinyl moving along the top of the surface. Use my finger, pinch it, and pull it up. So remember, you don't want to go right at that edge because you don't want to scratch those letters. But you don't want to be digging into the surface to try and find that vinyl, right? So trust me, it's not as hard as it looks, but you just gotta just be slow and patient, because after all this hard work, you don't want to have to go in there and fill all those little pieces with paint, because it doesn't always look as good. There. They're all gone. Okay, so depending on how thick you did your paint, which you really should, you know, be fairly thin, this is going to have a little bit of texture. Now, I like to sand it, but I don't like to sand it right after if I can help it, because I want this to really adhere. And if you sand it and it's still a little soft underneath, you can smear a little bit of that color. So I would say just leave it for now, and you can always come back the next day and just very gently sand around there, even though everything else is put together. Okay, so your mark should be up at the top. Your mark should be on the back. You should have a mark from your template here. And mine fell off before when we were doing it, the video yesterday, so I had to find where that was. So I just put it back in there because it really only fits best one way. And I turned it over, and I took my marker and I made a mark right there. So that's where I know everything is going to line up. So that's crucial right now. So we're gonna take this template and everything, because if you put this piece on separately, you have the tendency to squish the frame, which means then this piece won't go back in. So if you lay them together, then you know everything is going to fit where it's supposed to, and you'll be able to get this piece in and out, no problem. Okay, so let's put this on here and turn it. So mark is there, mark is here, and this inside of that curve should just fit perfectly there. So make sure that's all good for you. And then we're going to start to peel this off. So now, whether or not you have to make yourself some sort of mental note, but let's see. You can always do this. Put a little piece of tape right across that front there, so you know that that is the circle part that you'll need to come to. So do some sort of marking in the front so it's easy for you to recall. And then we are going to just peel off this backing. Now just go slow, and if you do it slow and kind of wiggle it back and forth, you should be able to go around fairly easily without them breaking apart as you hit each circle. And then just support it. As you can see, I'm holding right where I'm pulling, so that way you're very gentle and you're not going to break anything. Oops. And depending how much paint you put on the sides could also determine how easily this comes off, because if you're pretty heavy on your paint, it might just want to catch onto that and then rip them on your way down. So okay, there we go. Now because I did this pretty fast. If you start to peel this back and you notice the adhesive is starting to lift off the wood, just take that piece that you're pulling off and pull it back down, or push it back down, and then just give it a little rub. It'll help stick that to the wood. Okay, so come on over here, find your tape or your marking. There is mine. Now just kind of hover it over the template because you want, or your base, because you don't want to start pressing on it if you don't have all your circles lined up. So just use your hands and just feel whether you have to shift it one way or another. Just don't, if you start to push it in a little on the side, just make sure you don't push this piece in too tight that it makes it too difficult to get that out. But like when we cut things, sometimes it can be off by just like a millimeter. So if you're feeling that the frame is sitting just a little bit bigger than the base, just make sure it's like that all the way around. I'm just gonna look at it. So even if it feels like it, sometimes it's just because it's shifted just a little bit. So just keep feeling the sides and not the top, and you should be able to push it any direction you need to. I'm just going to pick it up because sometimes I can see where I need to address. Okay, there we go. A little bit here. See with the circles, if you shift them ever so slightly, it can change everyone. So just, you know what, I'm pretty good with that. Most, I would say 99% of them feel pretty good. Okay, so once you've got a good idea that you're happy with it, I'm just gonna press it down, because even if they are out at just a smidgen, like I'd really have to look pretty hard that they are. Yeah, no, I'm good with that. Okay, so now, see, I should be able to pull that out, just like that. And then there's your circle, your vinyl stencil. Okay, so if you took that out, make sure you know exactly where it's going back in. And now you'll grab your pieces that you would have done yesterday. So you'll have your stained pieces and all of your painted pieces. You should have them sanded. I sand them so they're a bit distressed on the edge, so you do what you prefer. Okay, so I'm going to start with my stain pieces. Now, even though they look symmetrical, sometimes when you get to some of these pieces, they fit better one way than the other. So just watch. If you're finding it wants to just catch a little as you're trying to put it in there, turn it the other way and see if it fits better, because it might make it a little difficult to get this out after. So just put them in there and give it a push. And I'm sure once I get to those pieces, I'll mention which ones are giving me an issue. Stain. See this one this way, so I'm going to flip it around. See, and it fit better that way. So just careful when you're noticing that. So I'm just gonna see. Yeah, no, that that seems fine. Okay, so yep, see, it wants to catch a little that way, so flip it over. See, fits better that way. So just watch. So if you're really trying to force it in before you get caught, pull it out, because once you go to pull this off, if it's catching on any lip of anything, it might cause you some issues when you go to pull it off. Same with this one. There we go. It just wants to fit better one way than the other. Okay. Yeah, that one's good. Now for this one, now I might have to hand place this one because this is the one that was causing me, oh no, it's gonna have room. Is you're gonna notice one side has a straight 90-degree corner and the other side has round. So just notice that when you're putting this piece in. There we go. Okay. Yeah, I'm not doing these in any particular order, as you can see. Now this one might give me issues too. This is where this one I had to pull out. That was damaged, so yeah, I might have to just hand place that one after. We'll see. Okay, I'm gonna leave that one to the end because I might have to place it by hand. Okay, so same with this one. It's very particular. Yep, there we go. That seems okay. Okay, so I'm just going to get it off there first. And I want to first, for me, I'm just going to test that this one actually goes right through. You guys should have no problem because I'm giving you ones that are fine. I should be okay, but put this back in there. And I'll push that. Yeah. We'll see here. Oh, no, I got it. Okay. All right, so give that a press. I'm going to take this piece off now because I don't need it there. And there, the front is done. Now you can keep this piece for yourself if when storing it you want to protect it, you can do that. Mine, well, it doesn't necessarily fit so well. So now we are going to flip this over and do that back piece. Okay, so remember, you did mark your piece here, which should have been taken to the back. So make sure that you still have that there, or that's gonna cause you a little bit of issue. However, if you did lose your marking in the back, just look for the opening on the circles that is under the D in the word under. And that's where you'll use that one as your center. Okay, so for those who have done this before, they'll know what to do. So what you're going to do is you want to take that center mark and we're going to glue this piece down first and we're going to center it on that mark because we want it to, we want this piece to go over top and hang straight. So this point should aim towards that opening there. So if you get this a little crooked, as long as when you're gluing this on, even if it's kind of angled, as long as that's pointing towards that top piece, you'll be fine. So you can use wood glue. I like the Gorilla Glue in the gel. Whoops. I'll just hope I can get it open. There we go. Just put a little bit on. And I come down a little bit, so when the piece hangs, it's going to be down a little bit. So so just put it down and kind of eyeball it that it's centered with that line. Okay, so I'm just going to let that sit a moment. Now you can take your string. Now, whether or not you decide to hang this or use command strips or something, if you do this, your string can always hang in the back and you'll never see it. So if you do decide that you want to hang it down the road, you've got it all ready to go. So with this piece, you need to put your string in first, otherwise it makes it really difficult if you don't. And then just kind of pull it so they're even at the ends. And depending on your glue, see, mine's already dried. I'm going to put some on this piece. And then I'm going to peel this back a little bit so I can get it off easier. And I'm just going to lay that over top, give it a squish, and just make sure, you know, your strings are kind of hanging. Whoops. Might need a little bit more. Oh, maybe not. We'll see. So when you're pulling on it, just make sure, there we go, that you don't pull your piece. There you go. So let that dry for, you know, a good few minutes, and yeah, then you're done. So you guys did it. It's all done. Oh, now see me. Just don't have your paint on the other side there, so you get your string and your paint. Yeah, so I will come back with another video on the ornament. That one is fairly simple, but you can paint it or stain it or whatever you want in your colors. I just wanted something for you guys for your tree that was a little special. So or however you want to use it if you don't have a tree or anything like that. So all right, so I will be back later, guys, and I'll do the other video. Thanks, guys. Bye.